I've been drowning so long, I can't seem to breathe. Lost in my mind, shadows, I can't find relief. Dragged down by the weight of what's in my head. I want to be stronger and rise up instead. Now I've been learning to heal, I've been facing the storm. And the clouds are parted, and the weight is gone, and I believe.
Hi everyone, this is Sally. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about everything emotional and mental health and well-being. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a roundup on my experience with going through the NHS Right To Choose option and having an ADHD assessment. So let's get started. You would have seen my video that I've just posted before and then straight after me having the assessment done. Before I start as well, little disclaimer going on here. I noticed that some of my videos keep going up part 1, part 2, part 3. And the reason for this is because I need to get a new laptop. I need to get a new laptop that is able to cope with these vlog edits. But until we get enough subscribers, until we get enough views, that will have to go on the back burner. So you're going to have to bear with me while I do my part 1, part 2, part 3s. Hopefully we can curtail this into a part 1 and part 2. But yes, okay, so it's been a few days. We are now on the 2nd of December. In my mind, I felt as if I was going to do the assessment and then record a video straight afterwards with my feedback and everything. I think I said in the video before that a lot of people had said to me, Sal, even though you've worked through all of these things, don't be surprised for it to hit you like a ton of bricks. And I know I did say it in the previous video, I said, I'll be fine. I've done so much therapy about this. I'm a therapist myself. I'll be fine. It hit me. So we'll get onto that towards the end of the video. So where to start? I was on the ADHD NHS in the UK waiting list for over a year. And I came across the Right to Choose program, which for those of you that don't know about it, it is the right to choose your healthcare provider in the NHS. And it is an opportunity to kind of sometimes go a little bit further afield than where you would go just in your general assessment providers, I suppose, but to be seen hopefully quicker. And I think I signed up to go on the NHS waiting list and heard of Right to Choose, and I spent about 9 months looking for a Right to Choose provider in Colchester, which is the area where I live and practice. I couldn't find one anywhere. I looked all over Essex, I looked further afield, London. I couldn't find anybody that was doing ADHD adult assessments with a waiting list that was open. And then on my rampage of trying to find and not giving up, because this is something we need to do, is just not give up. Is it right that you have to fight and go through all of this to try and just get an assessment? No, it's not. But unfortunately, if you don't have the funds or don't want to pay to go privately, this is unfortunately what you have to do. So I eventually found Provide Wellbeing, which is in Colchester. They had just taken on the ADHD adult assessment project. And so I phoned them, to them, the paperwork sent out to me. You know, at that stage, guys, I was quite desperate. I've been going over and over this. So this is very much like an ADHD trait, but I actually filled out all of that paperwork the same day I got it, went GP to sign it electronically, and had the forms sent back to Right to Choose within 2 days, which I know for an ADHDer is really fast, because any tasks that are kind of overwhelming, we do tend to procrastinate over. But for me, it was really I needed an answer. I needed to understand what was going on. So let's talk about the difference between the NHS, bog standard NHS ADHD assessment, and the Right to Choose NHS assessment forms. Now, the Right to Choose program is still through an NHS. It falls under I believe it does. It falls under the NHS umbrella. So basically, it's not privatized. There's a lot of bad press at the moment about going private with certain providers. Certain, absolutely gold star. Some of them, unfortunately, with a lot of things, even like with therapy, you get all these different companies jumping on board and kind of charging people a lot of money for a very quick assessment that possibly doesn't follow the NICE guidelines. And so for me, it was important. I wanted my assessment to follow the proper procedures that would be recognized through the NHS based on NICE guidelines as well. My experience of filling out the forms with the ADHD forms just through the NHS was that they were a lot shorter. I think there were about 2 or 3 forms from memory. This was my experience. And while the questions were quite similar to the Right to Choose questionnaire, it was the Right to Choose questionnaire had a lot more forms to fill out. It asked you to fill out when you were a 7-year-old, what you were like going through puberty, through your secondary years, what you're like in adult life. It asked you to, as a female, because they've adapted the questionnaires to females as well, which I think is so important because, as we all know, ADHD has been a condition or experience, however you want to call it, not a disability. But it's been, although we do fall under the Disability Act, so I suppose, yeah, it's still viewed that way. That's another topic for another video. But they have changed the paperwork to include awareness of how ADHD may present in females, and especially, I can't get my words out, especially during hormonal changes within us. There's also a questionnaire for your family members to fill out and for your partner to fill out as well. So the questions were a lot more detailed, and I think definitely not developed from a neurodivergent person because there's a lot to fill out. You can't fill it out electronically. You've got to print them, then you've got to scan them back. So there's a lot of admin. For anybody going through the process, I would really recommend you ask somebody to help you, to just send to you with it, because it can be overwhelming getting it all printed, filling it all out, amalgamating it back in, sending it in. But the questions are really eye-opening. I know for me, and I know for quite a few other people, reading those questions, reading questions in black and white, asked and compiled by a complete and utter stranger and probably organization, but that describes you to a T. I can't actually explain how that feels. It feels liberating and also quite overwhelming, if I'm honest. So I sent in the paperwork and I was really lucky. I know that quite a few people have to still wait quite a few months for the assessment to come through. But for me, I waited 3 months from phoning them for the first time to having my assessment. What happens next is that your questions are revised by expert clinicians, and they look at your question answers, and then I believe if they feel that you have a chance of having ADHD, don't quote me on that, but I think that's maybe what happens, they then triage you to an assessment. I'm not sure what would happen if they didn't feel you had strong points of ADHD. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask them. But I was triaged, and I had my assessment on Wednesday, which is where you saw me previously. Okay, so the assessment. The assessment took just over an hour. I got so lucky. I got an amazing psychiatrist and consultant, Dr. Daniel Masud. Dr. Daniel Masud works for the Right to Choose program at Provide Wellbeing in Colchester. He also has his own practice in Chelsea, just off the King's Road, called, and I'm reading it here, the Schoen clinic, I think it is. I'll put the text above in this video, but he specializes in general psychiatry and in addictions and in ADHD. And I feel really privileged and honored that I actually got Dr. Daniel Masud, because he was so lovely, so well versed, so supportive. The one thing that I think I didn't really realize, I did because they explained it to me, but at the point of assessment, I wasn't really fixated on needing medication. In fact, I didn't think I would need medication. I didn't even 100% know if I had ADHD. But I think what a good thing to know is that if you go through the Right to Choose option, is that not always will you be able to get the medication. You will still have to wait and go through the NHS, or you're able to go through, for me, provide Wellbeing, which was the Right to Choose contractor, the place that did the assessment. Or you can go through Dr. Daniel Masud, or you can go through other different consultants ADHD specialist consultants that are able to prescribe. So what was really, really interesting was how emotionally overwhelmed I became in the session. And it hit me, it really, really hit me, because it felt as if I was about to hear news that could explain my entire life and struggles that I'd had in the past. And yeah, he was really, really lovely. I was a crying mess, I'm not gonna lie. But the assessment took just over an hour. We spoke about describing myself at school when I was younger, how would people have experienced me, and describing really in the last 6 months, for a diagnostic reason, but for the last 6 months, how does ADHD in my mind play out? What things do I experience? And so after that, he gave me my diagnosis, which is combined ADHD. The hyperactivity part I'm very aware of, because I'm like that. But the inattentive part, I really thought was just something wrong with me, that I would zone out and just shut down completely and pull away. And I had no idea that that was part of the inattentive ADHD. So that was really interesting. We spoke about medication, and we spoke about how medication works on the parts of the receptors of the brain that, this is from my interpretation of what I understood. Obviously, if there are any other ADHD specialists that disagree with this, please comment below, because I'm not a psychiatric ADHD assessment expert. I'm just speaking from what I absorbed in that appointment, which was that antidepressants and certain medications will work for a certain point of time, but it's actually it's a different receptor in our brain that isn't getting fed the way it needs to. Unfortunately, that is where addiction comes in, food as well, all sorts of stimulants that kind of stimulate that part of the brain. And so we did speak about different options of medication. But at the same time, for me personally, what I've decided, being in my early 40s, I felt really empowered that I wanted to go and have a full hormone screening done of myself to see where I was on my hormone levels, and vitamin screening and a cortisol screening, which is the stress hormone. Because along with ADHD and trauma, but also being a female, what I learned through Dr. Daniel Masud, but also through training, was that, and this is in my own words once again, is that estrogen in females is almost like our shock absorbers for the nervous system a lot of the time. Well, our hormones are. But it's very interesting that people with ADHD, or females with ADHD, how they present during puberty, when they're pregnant, straight after having their baby, and then during perimenopause and menopause. So what you'll see a lot of the time is that during puberty and during your cycle, your hormones, your estrogen will be all over the place. And so your ADHD traits will be a lot more exasperated. be it the agitation, this anxiety. I mean, I call it anxiety, but I think it's the hyperactivity within you, or the lows, the depression, the inattentive part, the burnout, basically. And then when we fall pregnant, how our estrogen boosts up, and we can feel that our ADHD traits are actually really kind of curtailed in a way. We feel a lot more grounded. But as soon as we have the baby and our estrogen levels drop, how that very often can see people going into a deep, dark depression, really at a low. We know that you will, the baby blues and all those type of things, but for people with ADHD, I think this is exacerbated. It did get me thinking how many people have suffered postnatal depression or anxiety that have ADHD and aren't aware that the estrogen drop could also be a part of their ADHD. Again, I'm not a specialist in that, but it did just kind of therapeutically as well get me thinking about these things that we know so little about, or we speak so little about, and what that could do for people that have had postnatal depression specifically, or I'm not sure if it goes with the anxiety. I'm kind of presuming it might, but just to have a bit more of an explanation as to maybe why these things happen to them. And then again, it's because it's the gift that keeps on giving. Within your cycles, people with ADHD, you'll see they're a lot more high and low sometimes. But when perimenopause, which happens up to about 10 years before you even go through the menopause, and then menopause, how the drops of estrogen really starts to exacerbate your ADHD symptoms. So that, for me, was really, really interesting. And that is why I decided to go, before I even look at the medication route, obviously a big part of ADHD management and hormone management is nutrition, and knowing what supplements and what foods are really kind and caring and supportive for our nervous system and for the receptors in ADHD. But before I go to, I do the nutrition in any case. I'm sure there's still so much that I can learn, and I'm going to be on a mission to learn it even more. But I thought, let me get a clear idea of what my hormones are doing, what my vitamin levels are doing, and what the stress hormone cortisol is doing in my body. And then I can kind of make an educated decision on, do I want to go down the ADHD medication route, or is this something else that's going on within me as well? So that's kind of where I've been at. I've had a lot of processing to do. I have felt so liberated. I've noticed as well certain things I do, thinking, oh, that's the ADHD. And then something else kicks in where I think, oh no, it really is ADHD. It really is. It's not a question mark anymore. It is. And that's been awesome. That's been really cool. But it has brought up a lot of other things. Sadness, a lot of empathy for my little inner child and versions of me growing up. And I mean, I was shocked by the response I had after the assessment, because I had an absolute trauma trigger response. My entire nervous system was absolutely, felt like I'd been in a car accident. But it's that, shock, even though I knew it was a lot to take in. So I would really, really urge you that if you're going for the assessment, don't underestimate. I know my friend that said to me, don't underestimate, and I said, no, I'll be fine. You were right. But don't underestimate how huge this is. This is massive. For so much of our lives, we've been told there was something wrong with us, like I said in the first video. And to realize how strong we've actually been for all neurodiverse people, right? I just want to say, you're blooming awesome. You are. Because we function in this world. Neurotypical people don't spend time researching, trying to understand how to work with us. We have to do all of this ourselves. We have to adapt and adapt and adapt and adapt our entire lives. And they do say that neurodiverse people are really intelligent and successful. But that does not come without struggle. And I think that's maybe why, because we are so used to feeling like we're on the back foot and we have to adapt and being strong and pushing through. At times when it's been awful. And so for anybody watching this, if you feel that you want to go and get assessed, then believe in yourself and go and get assessed. You know, I think there is such a misunderstanding about, oh, everyone's got ADHD, or everybody's a bit neurodiverse, or no, not everybody's a little bit neurodiverse. I do have a theory. I know I say it to my clients. I do think, well, I have a feeling that later on in, you know, down the line, we are going to understand that maybe the gap between neurodiverse and neurotypical is a lot smaller than we once thought. But people say, why do you need to find out? Why? You've lived with it this long. I think for some, they don't need to find out. If they're in a good place and it's not created trauma, and they're not still struggling with ADHD symptoms, then fantastic. That's cool. But I think when you've had years and years of therapy and there's always still that missing piece of the puzzle, you know, when you do all these things in life that maybe are not that healthy in the process of how you act out, or you struggle with situations and you fundamentally believe there's something wrong with you, that it's you, then I think if there is neurodiversity at play and there is, for this video, ADHD at play, finding out or it's not a get out of jail free card. What jail? What? It doesn't give you anything. It doesn't kind of excuse you. We still have to take responsibility for our care and for our therapy to work through these things. But it validates you. That actually, do you know what? Back off a little bit as well. I do certain things, but it's not because of wanting to do them. It's because of how my brain works. Be kind to people. Be kinder to people. Have more empathy that maybe they struggle with this. Maybe they struggle with these things. And maybe they are doing the best they can. But oh my goodness, look how amazing they are in other areas as well, you know? I think that specifically for people, maybe, I was going to say maybe not the younger generation, because we do live in a world where it's a lot more open, but I'm going to take that back. I think that there's a small percentage of people that are neurodiverse that don't have trauma. And hopefully as the children come through and we live in a more open-minded society and education is a little bit more welcoming, still got a hell of a way to go with that, but the majority of people have trauma. They have trauma, many complex ongoing trauma from being experienced as different, misunderstanding things, struggling with things at school, feeling that they were stupid, the highs and the lows, you know, the ADHD burnout that you get, not being able to feel like you belong in groups, constantly reading people all the time, feeling as if there's so much energy going through you that you're all the time. And as well, there is no denying that if the ADHD receptors are fed by addiction, that so many of us have had addictions in our past or still do, and that so many of us have gone down roads that have hurt us. They've hurt us spiritually on a soul level. We have gone into bad situations and not known how to leave. We also, do you know, we've got a lot of forgiveness to do for ourselves. We've probably come across, we've struggled. We have struggled in life, but we're awesome because we keep going. My therapist gave me this word. We become alchemists. We make beauty and magic out of the ruins. But my word, does it take the most deepest digging deep feeling? And so that's why we want to find out. We want to find out because we want to know what to call it. Because the other alternative is to carry on your life believing that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And there isn't. There isn't. And I think that when you do find out, after the healing and after the looking back in your life and going through all these situations that probably happened because of your ADHD, a lot to do with it, not always, but as a contributing factor, we then can start taking care of it. We can start looking after ourselves. We can realize we function on a 120, bring it back to 80. Our to-do list, write your to-do list and then cut a third off. That's what neurotypical people would function at and feel overwhelmed. So we can try and curtail these high and low burnouts. So I think it's really important, and as well about nutrition. If you're female, your hormones. But also there's no denying that it's also genetic as well. Is it nature, nurture? We don't know, but we do know that it's genetic a lot of the times. And so there is a very big chance that if you are neurodiverse, that your children may be neurodivergent as well. Getting the terminology wrong, bear with me, guys. But other family members as well. And so I think it just opens your eyes a bit to having a bit more empathy and a little bit more understanding that probably there's a lot more people very closer to you that are going through a lot more than maybe you were aware of. And it allows you to research and learn how to better approach and handle these situations. So the best thing that you can do and say to somebody that says, I think I may have ADHD, is amazing. How do you want to look at this? Do you want to find out or do you not? And if they say they want to find out, the best thing you can do is say, that's fantastic. That's great. I'll support you. You know? And let them find out. It's important. If it's important to them, it's important. Okay. So the reading of the assessment. After the assessment, you get about a 9-page form sent out to you. And this was really, really interesting because it's something I wanted to talk about. There was a lot of in the forms, things that I knew, things that I do, things that I'd said in the assessment that I struggle with. What did strike me, and again, this is not negative against or towards Dr. Masud or any of the psychiatrists that do the assessment. This was just, I'm coming at this from a personal perspective, but also a therapeutic perspective, just to be aware of for people that are being assessed. And that is that when you read a medical assessment finding on yourself, and it's to do with your personality, how you present, in black and white, in very medical terms, it's quite an experience, because you're not, the therapeutic model that we always look at, we always talking with empathy and explaining things in an empathic way. But psychiatrists have a job to do, and it's a medicalized model. And while Dr. Masud was amazing, he was, and there's so much patient-centeredness in his report that, again, it's not about him, but he was doing a psychiatric assessment. He was, and he needed to write in concise ways how he experienced me. And the things that he wrote, although I was aware of them, it's really interesting because they are most of the things that I have been picked out about, bullied about, when I was younger, but things I've had trauma around. Being aware that I think for somebody with ADHD, well, let's talk from my perspective. I don't know if it's everybody. From my perspective, when my ADHD traits are quite unmasked and I can't mask them, I am very aware of how people, specifically neurotypical people, are looking at me. I am aware that they cannot follow what I'm saying, that I'm all over the place. I'm aware that it's like they're observing me in a way. That's how it feels. I don't know if they are, but that's how it feels. a lot of the time you grow up being told you're too much, you're a lot, you over emotional. Your stories are over emotional. You overshare. You tell too much detail. And it's really interesting if we link what we know about trauma. So a trauma response is over explaining. When you throw ADHD in there, and for my case dyslexia, there will be times when we over explain in too much detail because we either are feeling trauma triggered to be understood. We can't concisely explain ourselves because of the vocabulary that we're lacking in that moment with the dyslexia, or we are feeling vulnerable. And when we feel vulnerable, let's talk from the when I feel vulnerable, I'm sure it's for a lot of other people, but when I feel vulnerable with my ADHD, I unmask automatically. I cannot hold the mask. And you see the vulnerability. And I cannot tell you how it feels to be on the receiving end of the okay responses that you get back. And so it's interesting because reading that I fidget a lot, reading that I tell really long stories. I mean, I'm looking at the time on this vlog. Here I go again. But it's okay because it's my vlog. I'm allowed. But reading certain terminology that they use, it does kind of stab you in the heart a little bit. But yeah, I think, why am I saying this? Just so you can be aware. I think that it's a medicalized model. I know a few times in the assessment, and thank God he did, because I did ask him to focus me, but I would be explaining my experiences, and he would kind of go, okay, I need you to answer the question. Bless his heart. I mean, but that alone for somebody with ADHD, or okay, maybe specifically for myself, we don't just answer the question. Our brain doesn't work like that. And what Dr. Daniel Masud was awesome at doing, I did ask him to focus me a few times. I can remember that. But he actually offered as well. He said, do you need me to help to focus you? And I said, please, yes. And then he was like, okay, let's focus on and let's just answer my question. And that really helped me. But thank goodness I got a doctor that was willing to say, do you need me to help focus you a little bit right now? And I was able to also ask him to focus me. So I think that's important to know as well, is I think with anybody, when you get a diagnosis around mental health or how people perceive you, it can feel jarring, you know, it can. But take it back to therapy if you're in therapy. And also remember that it's okay. It's okay. A lot of the time as ADHD people, we're looking at people having this chit chat about handbags and shoes, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, how boring. Seriously, are you really interested in this? Like, do you know what I mean? Give us a topic that we know about, or we can empathize with, or we can, and like, we're there with you. But chit chat, oh my gosh, about nothing. Oh, nails to a chalkboard. And also, just another thing is, it's okay, because even if neurotypical people give you that look and don't understand you, guess what? As neurodivergent people, we get you. I don't know if you've ever witnessed two ADHD people having a conversation, but my word, it's brilliant and it's fun too. But yeah, when two ADHD people unmask and have a conversation, I do feel sorry for people sometimes, because their brain must be like, whoa, how did you even understand anything about that conversation? Because we're here, there, everywhere. So it's okay, you're not alone. We get you. And we got to learn to understand that others maybe won't, just like they have to understand that maybe they won't. They'll struggle to get us. And hopefully the more we keep talking about this and empowering everybody, the more we'll just kind of integrate. You know what I mean. So yes. that's me. Officially an ADHDer and proud. I know for a fact, you know, through all the trauma I've had, through everything, that my ADHD is as much a curse as it is my superpower. And I have hope now, because I feel as if I can understand and have empathy and heal and support and give myself time and give myself permission during the times it feels like it's a curse, then I can sharpen my little superpowers even more. And that's got a lot to say for where I am today as well, because we just keep going. We're like the little trains that could. And you're awesome. You're all awesome. But if you're neurodiverse, you're awesome, because you've had to adapt. So yeah, that is my update. Would I do it again? 100%. Has it given me more of an understanding of how to work with myself and how to work with clients and my family and everybody else around me? Yes. Has it changed anything? No. But equally, yes, it has. So yeah, I wish you guys all the best. And if you're waiting for your assessment, good luck. Okay. See you soon. Take care. Bye.